Okay, we're going to continue along with where we last left off. I know this is getting a little tedious, but time value of money is important, and it will be used by you quite often during the course of your careers, over and over and over again. Today, now we're talking about present value of an annuity. Before we were solving for the future value of an annuity, now we're solving for the present value. What does that do for us? Well, what it's going to do for us is the following. We're going to find out if we have a certain amount today. Let's call that certain amount today's net worth. And let's say we're my age, which is old. In fact, you might think my age is very old, because that's what it looks like to you. Wait till you get here to my age, then you'll see it's not so old. But anyway, if you take my net worth today, which I'm not going to tell you what it is, how much will that net worth be able to afford me retirement? Meaning, how much can I take out of it on a monthly basis as an annuity? It's like making my own annuity. I self-annuitize. That's what I'm going to do with my money. And by self-annuitizing, I can figure out a budget that I can afford to live off of in my retirement years. How much can I take out each month at a certain interest rate, which we'll have to figure out. For how many years, that we'll have to figure out. And given my age, I might want to add, say, 40 or 50 years, thinking I might live that long. And I want to be able to use the money over that long a period of time. So based on my present value, which is what the net worth is, what will my payments be per month? That's the unknown, or the annuity amount, and that amount is what I can budget myself to live off of. So I use this kind of analysis all the time in doing financial planning for people. It's a very, very powerful tool to use in financial planning, because it tells people if they can make a certain interest rate here, how much their budget can be over here. And as you can imagine, and you should imagine this, if your interest rates can go higher, the higher it can go, the greater the payment will be here, the greater amount that you can take out over time. When I actually do this, what I throw in two extra items. One is I throw in, on the interest rate calculation, I adjust, the economists out there can probably figure it out where I'm going. I adjust for inflation, so we can talk in terms of today's dollar's buying power, so I make it an inflation adjustment. And then I also do a carve out, that's what I call it, for the kids. How much do you want to go to the kids, so that we don't over budget and spend everything down? Some people don't care. Like, I don't care. Don't tell my kids that, but I don't care. I'll spend it all. What do I care? But some people want to leave a certain amount to the kids as an inheritance, and so we'll target that, and it'll reduce what they can take out on the payment here, but at least they know their plan is geared to meet some type of beneficiary factor to the kids. Okay, cool? Very cool. So let's see how we do this present value of an ordinary. Now we're going to do an ordinary annuity. Remember, that's at the end of the period. What is the present value of 9 annual cash payments? So this is another way to do the financial planning, by the way. Sometimes we do it this way, where we say to the individual, how much do you want per month? What do you want your budget to be? And they'll tell me what they want it to be, what they want to spend, what kind of money they want to have, and then we'll figure out how much they need to have today, or at retirement, how much they would need at retirement if they're going to make a certain amount of interest on their money in order to make that retirement plan work. So you can solve it both ways. So here's a question of the person might be saying, I want $10,000 a year for the next 9 years, and I can get 6%. How much do I need to put away today? That's the present value. What do I need to have in the bank today to make that work? And of course we go to tables. This is the present value table of an annuity. And of course it would be an ordinary annuity. And this is just the portion of that table. So I'm sorry, this is the calculation. Here's the portion of the table of the present value in an ordinary table, ordinary annuity table. So try saying that 3 times fast. Partial present value of an ordinary annuity of 1 table. Good Lord. We don't need to see how we use the tables. We've already seen that. It's 9 periods. It's 6%. The table will take us to this factor. Multiply the factor of the $10,000 per period. And you can see that what you need today, if this was a retirement plan, is you would need a net worth or a present value amount of $68,017 in order to make this budget of $10,000 a year. That's what we've learned so far from this example. What if it's an annuity due? That's taking out the money at the beginning of the year. Before, we were taking the money out, the $10,000 at the end. This has to be adjusted, or we're going to use the same table, and we just make an adjustment for the table. Since we have one more period of interest or time value of money, we do the same thing as we did before with the future value. We take 1 plus the interest rate, and that's the factor that we multiply on the table. So if we were before at 6%, it would be 1.06 as our factor. We multiply 1.06 times the number found on the table to get our new factor for present value of an annuity due. That's simply what, since it's the beginning of the period. So here we had 6.8017, so we're going to multiply that times 1.06. And that's, I'll do the math on my little handy dandy calculator so I can justify the tax deduction for it. And first I got to turn it on, that would help. 1.06 times 6.8017 equals, rounding it off, 7.21. Let's see if that's what happens here. Same concept, same interest rate in this question, different dollar amount. It's definitely looking for a present value, but at the beginning that means it's the annuity due. And let's see what the answer is. And here, let's take a look at what the question is. Renting equipment for 9 years, budgeting $15,000 paid at the beginning of the year. How much can they lease? How much can they really borrow? That's really what they're asking. How much can they borrow? That's what they're really doing here. The answer becomes $108,000. How? 15,000 times, and that's my 7.21. Taking it from the taking it from the future value table of an annuity, but multiplying it times the adjustment factor of 1.06. And again, that adjustment factor is simply add a 1 because we have one extra period since it's the beginning, plus whatever the interest rate is. How much of this of these table amounts are you going to really need to know? Well, that depends on what your teacher decides to do with the exam, which will be announced. The good news is that in real life you'll be using a financial calculator or Excel, and you'll have all these variables. You just put in the numbers in these variables that we've talked about, which was number of periods, interest, the payment, amount, future value if that's what we need to know, or present value if we're trying to solve for any one of these. By the way, these are always present in the formula. Sometimes when we're solving for a present value, our future value is 0, so we don't even need to consider it. Sometimes if we're solving for a future value, our present value is assumed to be 0. So if you're not quite following, well, why is it sometimes we don't use either one of these two in our approach to the problem? It's because it's not necessary. Let's take a look at what I mean. Here, our present value was $108,000 for $15,000 over the 9 years. At the end of the 9 years, if this was a retirement plan, and we were not saying that, and we were saying at the beginning of the year we want to take out $15,000 a year, how much do we need to do that? If it's a retirement plan, if we start with 108, that means at the interest rate factor that we're using, which was 6% over 9 years, at the end of the 9 years, end of 9 years, there's no money left. So the future value is 0. And that's okay if this is a retirement plan, and that's what we need our retirement plan to make our retirement plan. We figure, for whatever reason, we're talking to somebody who's maybe 110 years old, give them 9 more years, $15,000 a year. We're not concerned that there'll be 0 left at the end of the year, or at the end of the plan. All right. Okay, let's hold here, and then we'll move on to more complex annuities, and we should be able to finish up next time. Isn't that wonderful? All right. See you then.